What's up guys, Sci-Fi Guy 2094 here. Today, this video is going to trigger people on both sides. I'm going to be talking about Zack Snyder and James Gunn and the rivalry. So, let's just get right into it. I think the rivalry, the whole thing is stupid because it's among fans. You know, some people, I guess there's some Snyder fans that are like, oh, we don't like James Gunn because of his take on Superman. And then there's James Gunn fans that are like, oh, we don't like Zack Snyder because of how he directed Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, and we don't like his take on Superman. Alright, let me start with Zack Snyder because he directed some films in the DCEU. So Zack Snyder directed Man of Steel, which started the DCEU, which was produced and written by Christopher Nolan, and Chris Terrio was like the script writer, and Zack Snyder directed it. People thought, okay, well, he's not personable enough, he's too stiff, he doesn't have enough charisma. And then Batman v Superman came along, which was just like a bad script in general, a convoluted mess. And then people, that was also written by Chris Terrio, and people were like, oh, Zack Snyder's terrible, he's ruining Superman. I understand some of the criticisms, and then you had Justice League, which he had to step away from. The unfortunate situation with Zack Snyder was studio interference. Warner Brothers wanted so much control. I don't know why these studios hire these directors and filmmakers to do these projects, and then they don't let them do what they do best. The studios, you guys are business people, you guys are smart with money, you run the business, you guys have no creative, you're very I guess you're very myopic in terms of creativity. So I just say leave that to the filmmakers. This is going to turn into like a massive rant, but leave that to the filmmakers. You guys handle the money, the marketing, and just let filmmakers do what they do. They told him, hey, Zach, we want you to introduce all these members of the Justice League, but you have to do it in under 2 hours. We saw how that worked out. Unfortunately, like I said, he had to step away from Justice League, and, they're like, hey, well, this MCU guy, he's, MCU is the most popular franchise. Let's bring in Joss Whedon. And it was basically 2 films stitched together with, no real coherent plot with the characters and Steppenwolf and all that stuff. So that's what we got. Anyway, the film failed miserably, unfortunately. And every film after that, the DCEU didn't really have any direction, unfortunately, with nobody at the helm. A lot of people like to blame Zack Snyder for the DCEU's failure, but the truth is he never had full creative control of DC. It was Warner Brothers pulling the strings. They didn't understand the characters, they didn't understand comic book fans. There was like this one story where it was probably somebody in a boardroom, either at DC or Warner Brothers, and they were talking about the Man of Steel script, and the scene where in Man of Steel, Superman wants to use his ship to create a singularity between his ship and Zod's ship to open a black hole, and one of these executives was like, this shows you like how little understanding these business people have of comic books and superheroes. He's like, wait, we don't want him to use his ship, because if he does that, then how will he get back home? And it's like, are you serious? Like, why do you think he's on Earth? His planet got destroyed. He doesn't have a home to go back to. So these executives are just so freaking dumb. Okay. And actually, I'm out of storage space, so let me end this video right there, and then I will be talking about James Gunn and the